Hi, this is Kara. Welcome to Breaking Free Fridays, or welcome back if you've been following this series. It's really great to have you here. So, today I was inspired to talk about wielding your words for the life that you want. And I chose the word wielding because there is a battle. You know, we are conditioned to default to certain phrases and terminology and things that often keep us small. And if we become aware of these patterns and these kind of de facto phrases or de facto languaging, if once we become aware of those and we shift them and we really practice more empowering ways of talking, of framing things, of perspective shifts, that is a game changer. It's a game changer in affecting how we feel, how we think, our belief patterns. It's a game changer in just our overall journeys of empowerment and transformation processes. So, think about some of the things that are just so common in our world, in our language, where people will just default to I can't, or there isn't enough, or I'm not enough, or things that really get into a place of either lack or limitation, or fear, from a place of fear as well. And one of the things that's important to keep in mind as we talk about language and the power of words is that anything that we connect I am with, we actually are creating and connecting an identity. And that is something that we can end up buying into, even on a subconscious level, because these things get reinforced over time and are often picked up on just from the time that we're really small, and that they just get reinforced until we wake up to some of what we're saying. And keep in mind that there is energy in everything. So it may sound trivial, like, well, it's just a word here or there, but there's energy in everything. And there's energy in the words. The words are fueled with thought and belief patterns and feelings. And so, and especially the more we reinforce them, that's where you want to really pay attention to what you're saying and how you're saying it, and see where there might be opportunities to actually shift into more empowering focus points. Even, for example, things as trivial as talking about like the weather or the day. If you wake up and you hear the weather and it's going to be a really hot day, and maybe you're a person that doesn't particularly enjoy the heat, instead of focusing on that and going down a path where you're complaining about the weather, or like, it's going to just be too hot today, and all the things that might mean that you can't do. Instead of going down that path, choosing, wow, it's going to be such a beautiful sunny day. And it's really more acknowledging and putting more of the focus behind what it is that you want to experience, and what is still a part of what's true, right? So I've studied the works of Abraham for a long time now, and it's really important, some of the points that are brought up through those teachings around really noticing that we often put a lot more emphasis on describing our physical reality in its current form, and maybe even in reflection of the limitations that we're really wanting to break free of. But we keep reiterating it instead of reinforcing what it is that we want to create. and the languaging and the identity that is required from an energetic and vibrational frequency standpoint to actually allow that to manifest and materialize physically. So there's an alignment that must take place for that to actually come forward. And it's not about discounting the truth of what's in existence now. It's about recognizing that there's so much more happening in an energetic space and in those realms that place of co-creation and source energy that we don't have the clearest of sight into necessarily, and yet when we're able to tap into a knowing and the language and the words that really help reinforce the identities that we want to show up in life with, that are supportive of our goals and our dreams and the lives that we want to live. Those are just absolute game changers. The key is to be persistent with this, because keep in mind that, we've built patterns over years and years of ways of speaking and describing things. And we might not even be aware until we actually take a pause to, ask ourselves to really pay attention to how we say things or what we put a focus on. Even as simple as, having conversation about, how are you? Oftentimes people really downplay that. And you might be doing great, but we've been kind of conditioned to just pass over that, just like, oh, I'm okay. Everything's all right. Or maybe even, more of the energy and the negative, where a lot of times, things are reinforced in that context of, misery loves company. Our society is really good at reinforcing that and kind of keeping focus on the drama. So the more we can see where we can reframe things and our perspective can shift around even the places of gratitude. And sometimes this really puts us to the test. I'll share an example. Even, as a mom, there are times where, in terms of guiding my children, I might not agree with their choices, or, there might be something that really rubs against me in the wrong way. And then I get the opportunity to say, okay, that's their journey, and what is it that's great about what they're learning and what they're experiencing, even if the choice that my children made is not one that I would make, or maybe that I would want for them. And yet really taking that step back, kind of more of that, conscious parenting place where, it's giving the opportunity of really seeing from a different perspective, a higher perspective. Maybe that actually represents leadership capabilities. Maybe it represents advocacy or knowing more about who they are. And in that, oh my gosh, that's something to be so excited about, because if my kids are exhibiting, decisions and, patterns that showcase that they're listening to themselves and their own intuition, that's something that a lot of us have been shut down, and we're trying to rebuild and realign to and come back into wholeness. And yet it can be kind of confronting, right? So I guess I got a little bit sidetracked with that, but I think it's a good example where we can use language and perspective to frame things. There's always a forward moving gift and an opportunity for our language to be empowering. So I just invite you to see, where where those opportunities are for you. Really explore just with curiosity. Be curious, not with blame or guilt, or, this isn't about beating ourselves up or judging ourselves. It's about awakening to something that can really be a game changer for our journeys and our inner growth, the processes that can really help us break free. So I'd love to hear what patterns you're noticing in your own language, just day to day, or even in your identity framing. And let me know in the comments. And if you're finding these videos helpful, please share them with loved ones, and subscribe, send a like. One last thing I wanted to just leave with you: when you're thinking about the words that you use and how those connect to how you identify yourself, like, I'm a divine being of light, I can do anything that I set my mind to, things of that nature, even beyond like just the roles that we have, because we each hold so many different roles, and sometimes we can almost pigeonhole ourselves into an identity that's very connected to one role, and yet we're so much more, right? One of the things to really watch out for in your languaging is sometimes we can create an identity with patterns of behavior, patterns of feeling, patterns of thought, and that gets really entangled, and it can really limit us and keep us small. So, for example, if someone is continuing to reinforce things like, I am overwhelmed, or instead of, I feel overwhelmed, or even better, saying, I am great at prioritizing my time. I have plenty of time to do all that is important to me and that is aligned with my highest good. And some of this can feel a little off at first because it's different. And so the practice of it, and consistency is what's really key here. And you'll be surprised at how many times you'll catch yourself, and you can make a game out of it, and it'll be fun, and even get, people that are close to you involved in it and help catch each other, so that you can be kind of accountable to each other and really help reinforcing progress forward for you and, whoever you involve in doing this process together. So here is to your next level of empowerment and breaking free. I hope you have a wonderful week, and bye for now.